Tomorrow is the start of the new tax year, so in this video we're going to be talking about ISA allowances 2022/2023, all the different kinds of ISAs that you can use, their allowances, and I'm going to be answering some FAQs which I get often when talking about ISAs because it can be a little bit confusing. Let's go. Let's start with the basics. So this right here is your ISA allowance, £20,000. This is set to restart and renew tomorrow. Remember this number because we're going to be referencing back to this all the way through this video. Now, there are 5 types of ISAs that you can utilize during this next tax year. The tax year runs from tomorrow all the way to April the 6th, and then we begin again on April the 6th, 2024. Now, there are 5 altogether. I'm going to walk you through them right now. Your cash ISA is essentially a cash account. It's a cash savings account with your building society or your high street bank. The key thing to bear in mind with a cash ISA is you need to pay attention to the interest rate that they offer you. Now, unfortunately, we are still in an environment of very, very low interest rates. And that little, I guess, conundrum is very important if you're considering a cash ISA. Because essentially inflation at this point in time is over 5.4%. You're probably going to struggle to find an ISA account that is going to get you a return of over 1%. The upside about a cash ISA, and this is the upside about all ISAs, is the fact that whatever you get, whether it be 0.5% or 0.75%, the return is completely tax free. So it's a really big tick in the box. But at the moment, the big concern is inflation and the poor interest rates that we're seeing currently. Stocks and shares ISAs are investment ISAs. So they're invested in the stock market, and with that comes inherent risks. So if you're investing for less than 3 years, or you're looking to invest for less than 3 years, you should really stay away from this because markets can be a little bit volatile and you might get back less than you put in. This could be the case if you're investing over the long term, but the likelihood of that happening is reduced because you have time in your hand. Now, if you are looking at a stocks and shares ISA, it's really important for you to understand and to determine how you want to invest. So in other words, are you the kind of investor where you want to have control over what you invest in? You want to select your own ETFs, you want to select your own index funds, you basically want to select your own stock. So maybe you're really passionate about Twitter that went nuts yesterday because Elon Musk bought $3 billion worth of Twitter stock. If you want to be able to ride the coattails of that kind of price action, then you will have a certain kind of provider to help you do that. If you fall in this first camp of people, then you're likely someone who knows or is willing to learn what to do. You may find the videos on this channel really, really useful for you. If that's you, that's you. But essentially you want the full autonomy. You don't mind managing and monitoring your investment on an ongoing basis. You're willing to dedicate the time to that. If you're not the person that I've just described, you're probably going to be this next category of person, which is someone who is either busy with family, busy with work, busy running a business, and the idea of tracking and monitoring your own investments doesn't appeal to you. You would rather just employ the expertise of someone who is trained, a company that is set up to do that job for you. Now, in both equations, fees are a big consideration. So when you're looking at your providers, look at the fee structure that they're charging. Now, this is important because if you are investing over the long term, the lower you can keep your fees, the bigger your pot at the end of the day. But this is particularly pertinent if you are in the second camp of people where you would rather just kind of have a set and forget strategy where you put your money, you send your money to someone, to a company, and they do all of that management for you. The selection is very important. Make sure you're looking at, the history of the company, who they're backed by. Try and have a look at maybe some of their performance, how they're actually explaining things to you. You want a company that explains things very, very simply in a transparent manner, where actually they are not hiding their fees either. And that brings us on to our sponsors, Wealthify. Wealthify is on a mission to make investing easy and affordable for everyone. They're challenging people to think differently and do more with their savings. Their promise is pretty simple: no complicated jargon, no daunting fees, just straightforward, effortless investing. Now, Wealthify are currently offering up to £200 cash back if you transfer an ISA or a pension to them, or up to £400 if you transfer both. Terms and conditions do apply. There is a link in the comments below, but essentially you've got to register your interest for this by May 1st, 2022. You're going to have 6 months to complete your transfer. Not only that, but if you invest with Wealthify before June 1st, 2022, you'll be entered into a prize draw to win £20,000, which is essentially your ISA allowance for the new tax year, which starts tomorrow. Now, entries for this close June 1st, 2022. There is another link pinned below which will give you information on how you can enter. Terms and conditions apply both for the cashback and the prize draw. Unfortunately, if you're a resident in Northern Ireland, the prize draw excludes you. When you invest, your capital is at risk, so please remember this. You could get back less than you put in. Wealthify is authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. If you do enter, please let me know. I've got my fingers crossed for you. I hope that you win. Again, if you do enter into that competition and you do invest with them before June 1st, really good luck. I have my fingers crossed for you. But please remember, this is a stocks and shares investment. Your capital is at risk. Make sure that you do your own due diligence before you begin investing. This one is perfect for parents who want to essentially save some money or invest some money for their kids' future. Now, common reasons why parents will do this is for housing deposit. They want to help them with their first car. They want a pot of money that they might use for, university fees, those kind of things. The beauty about a junior ISA is that anyone can contribute into that. You as parents can contribute, uncles, aunts, nephews, aunties, great-grandparents, grandparents can contribute into this. For the junior ISA, the allowance is different. So your child actually gets this as an allowance every single tax year. Now, again, because it is an ISA, it is going to be completely tax-free. But it's also worthwhile bearing in mind that because it is a junior ISA and it is going to be in your child's name, your child will take ownership of that money at age 18. And what I always say to people who ask me about junior ISAs is that it is imperative that you have conversations with your children around the value of money and the fact that people have actually worked hard to build this pot of money for them, so they use it for a purpose that is righteous. If you already have children and you have maybe one of the old child trust fund accounts, it is really important that you go about actually reviewing that. Some of the charges on those are like circa 1%. You can get it a way more cost efficient if you transfer it into a junior ISA right now. So you can be able to reduce costs and you'll probably get better performance as well. Lifetime ISAs. Now, this is always a good one, and this is one that is great if you're looking to purchase your first home, you're trying to build a deposit. This is great for that, or if you're trying to build a separate pot of money outside of your pensions for retirement. Now, with your lifetime ISA, this is your allowance right here. Bearing in mind, and please remember that we talked about the £20,000 ISA allowance for the year. This £4,000 allowance is included in that £20,000 allowance. There's a few criteria for your lifetime ISA. You have to be over the age of 18, but under the age of 40 to open one. So if you're over 40, this isn't going to be great for you. But one of the reasons why a lifetime ISA is quite attractive is the fact that the limit is £4,000. And every year, if you pay £4,000 into it, you will get a 25% bonus from the government. So £1,000 from the government to help you towards retirement or towards the deposit for your first home. Now, you don't have to make that £4,000 up every single year because a lot of people can't afford to save £4,000 per year, but whatever amount you pay in, you will get a 25% bonus on. If you're using it for retirement, there are also some restrictions on there. I will leave a link in the comments pinned where you can actually read a little bit more about the criteria and other bits and pieces that you need to know. If you're using it for retirement, you can only pay into it over a certain age, and that's really, really important to know in terms of the conversation around, is it better than a pension? I have actually done a video on that specifically, so I will leave a card up here where you can go and actually watch that video to reference and see how they compare to a pension outright. Innovative finance ISAs. I don't see that many people use these, but they can be attractive. This is where you're supporting new businesses essentially, and because they are relatively new businesses, you're going to have a really, really high risk profile with this, and oftentimes the returns that they offer are quite high. So you've got to have appetite for this type of stuff to do it. Most people that I know will kind of invest in companies on the stock market that are maybe a little bit more mature, have more of a balance sheet, more of a track record, in opposed to doing this. But it is something that you can do, but please just be mindful that the risk here is really, 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 really high. Again, you'll keep it tax-free. Again, it is included in your £20,000 allowance. So if you are researching this, just be considerate of that and all the other options that you have available too. The answer to this question is yes and no. Let me explain really quickly, and we're going to reference back to the ISA allowance here. So this is your ISA allowance, £20,000. Now, typically speaking, you cannot have more than one account with a provider when you're using your ISAs in the tax year. That means that you have to kind of be clear on how you want to invest and who you actually want to invest with. So we spoke about whether you're a DIY investor or whether you're one that wants to outsource it to an expert. You can't just change your providers willy-nilly. Now, the only time where you can have an ISA with more than one provider is if you are opening a lifetime ISA. Remember, this is the lifetime ISA allowance right here, which is $4,000, which is included in your £20,000 allowance. Now, let's just say, for example, you have selected Wealthify as your provider of choice, and you're going to use them to invest. So you're the kind of person that wants to outsource it to an expert to manage the investment for you. Now, Wealthify don't have a lifetime ISA currently. And let's just say you're looking to purchase your first home and you think that 25% bonus from the government would really, really help you towards your deposit. In that instance, you could go and open a lifetime ISA with another provider and keep the Wealthify account that you have. It is the only instance in where you can actually do this. So the answer is yes and no, but it really depends on the account. The general rule of thumb is you can't have more than one kind of ISA open in a tax year. So what we've discussed here is we've discussed cash ISAs, stocks and shares ISAs, junior ISAs, lifetime ISAs, and innovative finance ISAs. You cannot have more than one cash ISA or any of the others in one tax year. That is generally the rule of thumb, and it means that you have to be mindful that when you're doing your research, selecting your providers, that you know what kind of ISA you want to open and whether that provider actually provides that kind of ISA for you. The answer to this one is no, you don't have to open a new ISA every single tax year. If you've been with Wealthify or another provider, for example, the previous year and you're happy with them, you can continue to invest with them. The key thing I would probably encourage you to do though is make sure that their performance has met your expectation. If you're in a stocks and shares ISA, if you're in a cash ISA, you probably want to go about looking at better rates. Does anyone offer a more competitive rate on the marketplace? That may be a catalyst for you to move. But generally speaking, you don't have to open a new account. You can stay where you are if you really wanted to, or if you enjoyed the service that you received from that provider. So this is a really good question, and every time I answer this, I say no. Never, ever, ever close an old ISA account and move it to a new provider. You should never, ever do that. Remember, this is your ISA allowance every single tax year. And the reason why you never close one down and move it to the other is because, let's just say over the course of 2 tax years, you've managed to put into your ISAs, I don't know, £25,000 and they're worth £30,000 now. If you go and close that account and go and open a new one with Wealthify, for example, in this current tax year, your allowance is £20,000, which means you wouldn't be able to pay £30,000 into it. The best thing you could do is to request a transfer. So let's just say you were with, I don't know, Wealthify, for example, and you wanted to move to provider X. You would ask provider X to initiate a transfer from Wealthify on your behalf. It's very, very simple to do. You simply fill in a form, provide all the account details, and they should do the transfer for you within 30 days. It is so simple. Never, ever, ever close down an ISA account and transfer over to a new provider, because whenever you do that, regardless of whether you've contributed over the limit or not, it is going to utilize your new ISA allowance, and that's not something that you want. Now, this is another great question. I think whenever you speak about pensions and ISAs, it's really important to understand maybe a few differences between them. You know, your allowance for an ISA is this per year. For a pension, it is this. So it's double the amount. But obviously with a pension, you are restricted according to rules and regulations around when you can access the pension, which is currently under today's legislation 55 years old. That's problematic for many people who would rather want or would want access to their ISA for something at some point before 55. With a pension, you're getting tax relief on the way in, you're going to be paying tax on the way out. Whereas with an ISA, you've already paid tax on the money that you're paying into your ISA. You're building it completely tax-free. And if you ever did use it to generate an income, the income is going to be tax-free. So when you compare it in that fashion, you're kind of tax neutral. In answering this question, I would suggest that it's all about your circumstances that determines which one you should basically choose. If you need access to money before age 55 and you know that that's going to be the case, then by all means, an ISA could be the best solution for you. If you don't need access to it, then a pension may be the best solution for you. But again, when we look at financial planning, you also have to consider that actually an ISA is part of your estate for inheritance tax planning, whereas a pension isn't. So it is really all about swings and roundabouts. Maybe I need to do a separate video for that specifically. But anyway, I hope you've got something from this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions, leave them down below. I will see you guys on Friday. Catch you later on.